about ready to get started with our next session. Thank you all for being here. You are the ones who have braved the elements this morning. So for those of you who are here earlier for our case study session, I hope you found it worthwhile to be here. And we are excited about our next session presented by Lissa Pohl from the Center for Leadership Development in the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environment, right? I got it all right, didn't I? Okay. So Lissa's got a wonderful session for us, seeing how to serve, leveraging our perceptual skills to increase engagement. And if you just also want to say, if you haven't signed up for the luncheon but would like to stay, please stay for the luncheon afterwards. We'll be getting started soon after this session. And we have a neat little networking activity during that luncheon. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You guys take the lunch. Okay. So, Lissa, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, great. Thanks, Bill. All right, welcome everybody. This wonderfully sort of drizzly fall morning, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to wear a fall outfit for the season. So anyway, as Bill said, I work in the Center for Leadership Development over the College of Agriculture. I'm in the Department of Community Leadership Development, and I do programming for the center over there. I work with organizations in the community. I work with students doing leadership development, and then currently this week I have a leader in residence who is here doing presentations all over campus and across the town on social media. So you might have seen some of my posters around campus on Jane Craven's. So busy week, but I'm really excited to be here. Right? This is the biggest audience I've had for this kind of presentation. So we're going to get started. This is a really fun topic for me. My background, I got my master's degree in psychology, but really focusing on transformational leadership development and how we embody leadership. How do we actually get leadership in our body, all right? And how do we utilize that kind of information to be better leaders, as well as serve others? Because that's what leaders do, right? They're in service to others. All right, so we're going to launch in here, and I'm going to throw out a number. 450 billion a year lost in productivity. What's that number talking about? What do you suppose that number is even addressing? And guess, wild guess?
Employees not doing their job.
Okay, exactly. That is how much we lose in productivity every year in the United States because people are not engaged at work. Right? It's huge. It's actually larger than sick leave, okay, for illness. That's $260 billion a year. And it's a little less than the what we spend, our budget is for national defense, which is about $600 billion. Okay, so we're right up there with, so if you combine sick leave, probably, you know, if you add some of that sick time illness away from work to this, you're right about the national defense budget. About $600 billion it's lost. So it's a huge issue. It's an issue in every organization. And what can we do about it? It's like, well, you know, it sort of seems, you know, unfathomable that I could do anything to create this to be different, make this different. But if you guys learn some skills, which I'm going to give you today, it's really about you seeing things differently, perceiving people differently, and that's where we're going. So, as we said, the majority of American workers are not engaged in their jobs. 71% are not engaged, and then 16% of that 71% are actively disengaged. These are the people who come to work and make your life miserable. Okay, and are grumbling, and they're taking your organization, your team down, right? They're very actively disengaged. Most people are going and they're getting a few things done. So it's kind of interesting. Why do you suppose people disengage from work? What do you think is going on when people disengage from work? Yeah.
They don't feel valued.
Okay, so what would make them feel valued? That's what you're here for, right?
Save programs, I mean.
Okay, so they don't feel valued.
They don't feel included.
They don't feel included. Okay. All right. So we're appealing to what part of a person? Emotional. Okay. So we're going to be looking at some of those things today, and what you're going to be getting out of this workshop, our objectives today, are how do you use a more holistic methodology to, and a somatic approach to engaging others. I kind of liken it from going from rabbit ear antenna, and I'm so glad you guys are a little bit older because I say this to students, and they're like, what's a rabbit ear antenna? I've never seen it before. Yeah. We used to put them on our TV, reception, to a satellite dish, right? So, and then understanding and noticing what types of feedback opens and closes people's system, and you'll get to see that in real life. And then we're looking for you to be able to start really looking at targeted results, which are happy and engaged more. So how do I affect someone else to become more engaged? Some of the skill sets you'll walk away with today are an increasing awareness about how to deepen your perceptual skills and abilities. You'll understand what transforming feedback is and what kinds of feedback is not transforming, and you'll get to know what that is. Action steps and solutions. So once you kind of work with someone and you kind of see where they're going, then you can actually give them action steps, or they can create their own action steps to stay more engaged and more balanced. And then what's an integrity environment? How do you create environments where people can show up? Because most people, like you said, they don't feel valued. They don't feel like when they come in that they're worth anything or that they're actually contributing, those kind of things. Okay. So for a long time, we're talking about how do we engage people? Well, we want to know their brilliance, right? We want to engage their knowledge, their intellect, right? So you've got that IQ part of engagement, and you've got that EQ part, which is they feel emotionally connected. They feel like they can bring their emotions, that they are seen to be whole human beings with families and things that go on in their life that affect them emotionally, or they want to celebrate their life with others at work. So that's the emotional quotient. So we're looking at those kind of things. But when I was looking in my studies about that's great, we can give these kind of things to people, but how do we know when they're engaged using IQ and their EQ fully? Well, I think that equation isn't really full. I think that is an inadequate equation. And what's missing for me is this notion of PQ, physical intelligence, somatic intelligence. Somatic means of the body, okay? So it means bringing that intelligence that we use to relate to others. That's how we're picking up whether you're emotionally engaged or not, right? So what we need to do, so we're going to be focusing on this part today, the PQ, right? All right, so it begins very young. I'm going to ask you guys to look at this picture and just kind of notice where it takes you. What does this picture do for you? I see smiles, I see nods, feelings of I can relate to that. What's that?
Calming.
Calming, okay. Why is it calming?
Serene.
It's serene, okay. What else? What else do you notice about this face?
Engagement.
It's engaging. Why is it engaging? Excuse me?
The icon.
The eye contact. Yeah. That baby is focused on that camera, totally engaged, almost to the point where it's like sucking you in. Babies do that. What else about this face that you notice? I'm going to just start getting you to really look at the physicality. What's that?
Mouth is slightly open.
The mouth is slightly open. Yeah, it's relaxed.
The head is tilted to the side.
Excuse me?
The head is tilted to the side and the listening.
A little tilted, yeah. So when we're born, if we're not born with some sort of issue, physical issue, right? We're born fairly symmetrical, okay? So this baby, if you were to, put a line right down this baby's face and just lay it together like this, it'd be almost identically symmetrical, okay? So when we're born, we're all pretty much like this. But as we grow up, things start to shift, and I'll show you how that works. And the reason we're so attracted to this is the symmetry, the balance, and the vitality and the focus in these eyes. It's just present. This baby is present. The world is its oyster. It can have anything it wants. It cries and it gets milk. It needs its diaper changed, whatever. When we're born, we get the world is our oyster. Anything's possible. Our potential is like right there. It's just ready to go, right? Good symmetry, and I hate to take sort of the romance out of some of this. This is a little bit more biological. But good symmetry shows that an individual has the genetic goods to survive development, is healthy, and is a good and fertile choice for mating. I know. Okay. I'm sorry to boil it down that way, but that's why we're attracted. That's why we're attracted to symmetry, because it shows that we're healthy. It shows that our bodies are aligned with what we are meant to be. Okay? All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this with just kind of real basic notions of this concept that we're going to be using. So here's the baby. We're symmetrical. The world is our oyster. We're going to go through school. We're going to explore all of our options, all of our potential, and then life happens. Okay? And life consists of environmental feedback. We get feedback from our friends, our parents. Oh, you can't be a doctor. You're not smart enough, or we don't have money to do that. Right? And then pretty soon, we end up like this. Okay? And you know these people. Okay? And those people are us, oftentimes. All right? So this is sort of the progression. We grow up, and then we turn 18, and we have to take the first job that we've never really wanted to do, and then we kind of go down the progression of, oh, I don't get what I want in my life. Right? And then we end up sometimes way down, kind of sometimes in depression. So a lot of people who are disengaged are depressed because they actually aren't using their full potential. They're not being seen for their brilliance and their balance and what they came into the world to be. So I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could reverse that? So the ability to leverage physical intelligence to engage others may be the most powerful and yet the most overlooked of human competencies. You guys are doing it. We're all doing it. We have bodies, they're like biocomputers. We are picking up information all the time, but we don't leverage it to transform our own lives and other people's lives. We're getting it all the time, right? But we don't leverage it. So what if we could start with your someone on your team showing up every day. This is them, right? Life happens. Different environmental feedback they are getting into their system, and then they're this way, right? What's happening here? So what is this? This is the key. What is this? What kind of feedback results in this? You guys will actually see it in just a minute. And you guys are going to practice it today, too.
I think it's the opposite of their expectation.
What do you mean?
Well, when people get to that part of the equation where they're looking like that, I think they have a very stilted view of the entire world, and they expect that this is the way it's always been. And when I say this is, and actually it becomes something of a power play for them, because it's like, yeah, I'll tell you how this is going to turn out, right?
Right.
But then when you get the unexpected, they have to stop and think for a second. Wait a minute, that's not what I thought was going to happen. And I have seen that transformation in people before, where they're expecting you're going to be negative to their negativity, and when they're not, they don't know how really to deal with it.
Exactly.
So they have to go back and recalibrate it.
Exactly. Great. Thanks for sharing that. Did everybody hear that? Lori? Okay, good. So, to know what we're doing, we have to know what engagement looks like. Okay, so you saw that baby, that's engaged. That baby was totally, fully, 100% engaged. Right? We have to know how to consciously leverage the knowledge to transform others. That's what we also need to do. Understand how to do that. And we also have to understand what this could do for our practice, our professional life, our organizations, and for your own life, with your families, your friends. Okay? So these tools you can use all the time that you're going to get. So I'm going to give you an example in real life what this looks like. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm a lights on learning coach. So I learned how to do this technology about 17 years ago. I became a lights on learning coach. And what we do is we take photos of people before we coach them. They sit in front of us and we take a digital, about 30 seconds of digital feedback. And we wait until they're just there, okay? And they just show up and we get a snapshot of them. And then they go through a coaching session, an hour and a half to 2 hours, where they get feedback. And it's the kind of feedback that creates this transformation in this type of coaching. And this is what happens. So, she shows up, there's stuff jamming her system, okay? Environmental feedback has resulted in her showing up like this. This is just a relaxed look, just came down and wanted to get some feedback about where she needed to go with her life. So she got some transforming feedback, it drops in, and then 2 hours later, this is what she looks like. Same or different?
Very different.
Okay, very different. And that's part of coaching, is noticing when someone shifts. What are they talking about? What was this? What were the questions that got her to there? We'll get to practice that in just a minute. Okay. Feedback, that's the key to engagement, is getting feedback. And it's not constructive criticism. Sorry, there's nothing constructive about criticism. You criticize and you'll see a person's system shut right down. Okay? There's nothing, there's constructive feedback. And then sometimes that gets a little slippery, it's advice, or it's a story, or it's a projection, and we'll show you what that's like too. So feedback is the most significant non-instructional solution to human performance. This is by Dr. Rothwell, who's an organizational leadership person at, I think he's at Penn State. And I thought, well, if it's non-instructional, why wouldn't we want to make it instructional? Why wouldn't we want to know a lot more about how to give feedback to others that creates this engagement, that creates people wanting to be where they're at and contribute more? So, this was really interesting. So I was doing this work, like I said, 18 years ago, and this was pretty cutting edge work to look at how do people transform. And I was like, well, who's doing this? You know, where can I find that this is actually proven? And I want to show you a little video, because this came out in 2010 by Richard Boyatzis. I don't know, is anyone familiar with his name? He's a researcher with emotional intelligence. He's worked a lot with Daniel Goleman, and he's up at Case Western, and he did this really cool study, and I was so happy when he came up, because it totally kind of proves or supports what I've been noticing as a coach doing this transformational coaching for years. Like, what is going on that someone can look one way and a couple hours look completely different? What is going on there? What's happening in our brain? So what we're going to do is you guys are going to see a little YouTube video.
Discover what's possible when we think research at Case Western Reserve University.
Does everybody see it?
It's a part of everyday life, giving or receiving help in some way.
Whether a doctor working with a patient, a teacher with a student, a manager with a subordinate. What we're trying to do is help people develop
Richard Boyatzis is a professor of organizational behavior at the Case Western Reserve University Weatherhead School of Management. He's discovered that different approaches to coaching and mentoring have different outcomes. For example, if you coach someone in a positive way,
We believe that you would activate parts of the parasympathetic nervous system, which would enable them to open up cognitively, perceptually, and emotionally. Conversely, if you appeal to something that makes them feel defensive or guilty, you activate the negative emotional attractor, which causes people to defend themselves, and as a result, they close down.
Boyatzis took his behavioral discoveries a step further by collaborating with cognitive sciences professor Anthony Jack. Together, they studied what goes on inside a person's brain during different styles of interaction. First, they had students interviewed in two different ways. One positively focused on their future, and the other focused on the challenges they face in their courses. Afterwards, the students underwent a brain scan while watching the video clips of their interviews.
We were really struck by one particular finding, which was in the visual cortex, where we really see a lot more activity in the more positive condition than in the more negative condition.
What makes this study unique is the interviews focused on the participants' real life.
So what we think we're seeing is the neural correlates of someone positively imagining their future, their hopes, their dreams. And we're seeing that much more strongly in the positive coaching condition than we are in the sort of negative condition. The more we can understand about the detailed parts of the neural activation, the more we can actually tailor the learning experiences. And you can imagine how much more effective we would be in helping them create new ideas to become both more effective organizations and better society.
Learn more on how Case Western Reserve University thinks beyond the possible at case.edu.
Okay, so that's pretty cool stuff. And what I thought was really interesting is that he talks about the visual cortex. Okay, so they get activated when you're talking about what someone has as a vision of their life. What do they want to do? How do they contribute? It's activating the visual cortex. It's very interesting to me because that's what I use when I coach people. And that's what we're all using when we meet someone and we evaluate in a nanosecond where that person's at. Okay, so we're doing this all the time. But the good news is that you don't need to be in an MRI. You don't need to have your employees and your team members go take an MRI to be able to know what's going on in their brain. Okay? That's the good news. It's a lot cheaper. All we need to know is that our body shows us what's going on in our brain, how to pay attention to physical and somatic cues, and how to use transformative feedback with others. That's all we really need to know and start doing. So, Richard Strozzi Heckler is a somatic coach. He has the Strozzi Institute out in California, and he is a black belt in Aikido, and he actually teaches the highest regiment of the Marines who go in like special forces, kind of like Navy SEALs. And he teaches them how to trust the information that their body is getting when they are in stressful combat, right? He actually teaches them how to become one with their body, so their mind, their information about what's going on, their IQ is coordinating with their EQ and coordinating with their body so they can act in an instant and know what to do and trust it, okay? So he really, really feels that you have to incorporate this information from the body if you really want to be a successful leader. You have to understand how to do that. So you guys get to practice, all right? So I'm going to ask you guys to say what you see on this face. This is the same face we saw a little earlier ago. Say what you see, like she's a Picasso painting, okay? What do you notice? What do you see? Yeah.
Her head is slightly tilted to the side.
Okay, which side? I have R and L on there.
top right side.
Okay, great.
Just kind of leaning over.
All right, kind of tilted, awesome.
I think her eyes look dull.
Her eyes look
She's
dull.
kind of heavy lidded.
Okay, so her lids are heavy here, kind of dull. Is one eye more dull than the other?
The left one.
The left eye is more dull than the right eye. That's good noticing. This is all great feedback, by the way. This is transformational feedback.
Eyebrow
Okay, her left eyebrow is higher than her right eyebrow.
Her lips are pursed.
Her lips are pursed.
I think her hair is messier in this picture than the other.
You mean when she transforms?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't. Okay, that's so funny. When we started, there's another picture I have of a woman who we utilized her face for some of the demonstrations that we were doing when this was back in Seattle. And I called her the lights on poster child because this woman got coached for 35 minutes and her hair was like, and then she didn't get up, she didn't do anything, her hair was like, ta-da. So what's interesting is every cell in our body responds to transformative feedback. Even the cells.
So we're having a bad hair day or really pleased or really having a bad
Okay, what else do you notice about her face? Because the more information we can really start noticing, yeah.
It just seems tense, like it looks like she's pulling back on all of her.
Pulling back, yeah. Okay, what
Looks like
else?
she wants to smile, but she's not. She's like,
Okay, so you get that feeling that she wants to smile, that she does, yeah, and that might be just kind of, there's a little tension around here. Kind of.
Her nostrils seem a little flared.
Her nostril seems a little flared, yeah, kind of.
I think her eyes, you said they look dull, but to me they look like that teacher look when you're trying to intimidate a student, like that.
Okay.
Layer.
Okay.
Tense.
Yeah. Does she, now, she is sitting about maybe 20 feet from the camera. She was asked to look directly in the camera. And for some of you who are on the side, it might be a little bit harder to kind of notice. But are her eyes focusing in the same spot? What's going on?
The left one's off.
The left one is what?
The left one looks less focused to the center.
Okay, yeah, I can't even get a sense of where she's connecting to with that left eye. What's interesting is if you know a little brain biology too, and it doesn't directly correlate, but the right brain, okay, controls the left side of our body, right? And the left brain controls the right side of the body, okay? So in general, that right brain tends to be a little bit more the creative side, the side we do relationship from, okay? The yin side, the female archetype side, that kind of stuff, because we're both male and female have these. And then the right side is her how-to out in the world side, kind of looking at how am I going to get things done. It's her business side. This is how she's going to see what she wants to do. So when I look at someone's system, I can kind of go, this is less connected than this side. So I'm going to direct my questions and my inquiry to this eye, literally. I'm going to ask her questions that might trigger a response in her system. And so, yeah.
Was there a light source to her right side versus the left? Because I'm seeing shadow under her neck on that left side, and it seems to me that it's unequally lit, and that could be a big part of why they look different. That's just...
Yeah, and that's great, yeah, because, and what we do when we do this, we actually put a photo camera light in front of people so that we try to get the most even lights. And sometimes there might be a window in that room, the shades are pulled, so there might be some light coming in, but generally we really try to keep it so that we don't go, oh, that was just the lighting or stuff, because things shift. And even lighting, some people's faces are kind of like this, literally farther back on one side than the other, which would give it more of a shaded look from behind. And after they get coaching, actually they start coming out. It's really, really fascinating. So, yeah.
Not to get too terribly technical about it,
Okay.
but if you look at her left, right, no.
Yeah, point it out.
If you look right here, you get creases where you get creases where you keep creases. That's why they say, oh, you get smile lines when you smile, you get these little crinkles at the end.
Right.
So it looks to me like that is a pose that she uses a lot because her face is already has the natural
Right.
crease where it is most.
And where we're worried, we get those
You get the frown
here and
lines,
here,
you know.
when we're worried,
So that's-
pensive, you know?
That's one of the things when I look at them, this is not an unusual pose for this.
Right.
Now, that
Yeah.
might be completely wrong, but that, when I look at it.
But she might have looked just like that baby when she was born. She probably did. Okay, life happened. She got coached. And so we're looking at the differences. I also noticed that if you were to draw a plumb line, sorry I can't have my arm over there, guys, but if you draw a plumb line right down the middle of her nose, down to her chin, and you measure from the middle of her nose to her temple here, it's so wide and it's wider here. Her left ear's low, her right ear's lower than her right ear. And that's because she's tipping her head like someone said over here. All right, so there's a lot going on in this system. And what we need to know is, can that shift? And indeed it can. So we noticed the eyes, the dullness in the eyes, the coloring around the eyes, the mouth, that crinkle that you just noticed, the ear is higher, that left eye is duller than the right eye, the eyebrow is higher on that left side, and then compared to the right side, that distance thing. And then you have to ask what's going on here. And it's really interesting because people who have been noticing this, you'll find it in many religious texts, you know, about the light in someone's eyes and that kind of stuff. It's real. People have been noticing light in people, the light in people that comes off of someone when they're really doing what they love to do. And this is by Black Elk, who was a Lakota medicine man and chief. And this is his statement. It's true. It's not a metaphor. It's in the darkness of their eyes that men
What
get
you can
lost.
see on these crimes that have been committed where they shoot a lot of people, they have their eyes. I can usually see them, in their eyes. They're having a real darkness in their eyes.
Yeah, there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's because feedback has jammed their systems. It's gotten in there and they started to believe the feedback and our body follows suit. It's very fascinating. So, what happened? What kind of feedback did her system get? All right. She came to us. She was wondering why she's a psychologist. She was wondering why she wasn't getting any clients. Because they walk in and go, oh, I'm getting out of here. Right? You guys did really well. Did someone want, when they said that, when I said, what do you see? Did someone want to say anger? Okay. All right. A shield, okay. And you guys didn't, but I wanted to point that out, because if you'd said anger, and she was sitting up here for real, who said she looks angry, I would say, what on her face tells you that she might be angry? Because anger is our interpretation of what we're seeing on, maybe she is angry. But if we call it out, guess what we've done? We've just created another box for her to jump into, and it's our box of her. She's already in her own box. We don't need to put her in our box too, or in our projection of shifts. Someone says, she looked hostile or whatever. I would say, what on her face? Go to what you're actually seeing. Go out, suspend your judgment. Don't make up a story, because when you do that, you create an environment where she can finally show up, maybe, and become more herself and more balanced like we saw. So transforming feedback is highly objective, like you guys did right off the bat. You just said what you saw, and you noticed it. All right? You can use digital images like I did here. You guys aren't going to be taking pictures of your folks in your organizations. Your verbal inquiries are devoid of judgment, criticism, a story, or advice. All right? You're going to stay open. The questions you're going to ask are going to be really broad and wide. And they're always going to be pointed at their highest self, who they really are, who they possibly could be. And that's what you got. Same or different, and call it out. Because if she was sitting up here right now, she'd want the feedback. What shifted? What,
She looks younger.
she looks younger. Why does she look younger?
Well, I think because she's almost smiling, so that's pulling some of the wrinkles, and I don't know, but she looks
Like,
younger.
yeah, it's almost like she got a facelift in an hour and a half. God, that's awesome. Yeah?
Her neck looks longer. So she doesn't look like she's slumped down. So I don't know if she's adjusted her sweater or if she's actually setting up straighter so that it looks like she's.
Less tense.
Less tense, okay. So what on her face shows you less tension? What shifted here perhaps?
Her lip, the way her lips and her mouth is formed,
Okay,
and her eyes, she seems to be more relaxed.
okay, yeah. What about the quality of the gaze in her eyes? What shifted there?
They're both focused now.
What was that?
They're both focused now, and you can see the reflection of the light off her left eye where before you could not.
Good noticing. She sat in the same place. She didn't move. She's the same distance from the camera. Yeah. So, yeah, very huge transformation for this woman. And what we found out in that interview was she was in a bad marriage. Okay? And she really kind of wanted to get out. And we're not there to coach her out of her marriage. We're here to have her strategize action steps that will get her here. Maybe marriage counseling will work. Maybe it won't. Okay? If she lights up on marriage counseling when we say, well, you know, did you want to go see, you know, what therapist have you seen or whatever, we don't go into the therapy part of it, but what would you like to do? If she lights up on therapy, great. If she gets more like this, great. Then that would be an action step. If it doesn't, then maybe we're not going to say, oh, go see a therapist and save your marriage because, you know, it's going to close down. So we're not here to judge her and her situation. We're here to hold a space for her to show up and to find her new reality and shift. Right?
Do you mind if we go back one? Because I want to check, her eyebrows look like they're raised, but they're raised symmetrically. So her eyes look like they're wider open, but she still has that arch in her. The arch in her eyebrow, this will make sure what you're doing. So what are you trying to say to me? But then when you see the other one, it looks like it's more inquisitive instead of what are you trying to say? It's like,
Yeah.
it looks like a more positive thing. So I just wanted to see how her eyes.
Yeah. And what I also do is I actually just film people's sides of their face. I have them cover it up in a coaching session. You guys aren't going to go around, oh, come here, but just noticing different sides and really identifying what shifts, just so that we can start really seeing differently from side to side. Yeah.
In the second picture, can you see more of the light reflecting in her eyes more because her pupils are more wide open? Is that maybe why? Because what else would cause you not to be able to see the same light from the same position? Is it for pupil size?
It's the quality. I mean, we see people's skin color change. I've seen coloration. I've seen people who've been completely pale. I mean, like really ashen, and then all of a sudden their circulation comes in, and I've seen lines across people's face where it comes in to a certain point. It's just amazing. I never know what I'm going to see or what's going to shift in a person. I stay highly curious to when it happens. So she was coached, and when she talked about stuff that moved her this direction, we went down that avenue. We didn't go back to what was not working. We go towards what's working for them. And we can't really know what that is, because oftentimes people you're working with, your family members, they don't know really. No one's ever asked them, what's your highest aspirations? What are you the Picasso of? What's your brilliance here? What can you bring to work that no one else can bring to work? What if someone asked you that? Would that change things in your office? Most likely. Okay. Max Dupre has written several books on leadership as well. He's a really neat guy. And he says, learn to see again with the eyes undimmed by precedent. It's what's happened to us in the past that holds us in our boxes and doesn't allow us to fully utilize our brilliance. Therefore, we go to work and we're doing the job that we really don't want to do. No one really sees who I am. I could do something really great here for this organization, but no one else sees it and no one gives me feedback about what I'm good at. Okay? So feedback is really the So here's another one to look at. This young woman was referred to us by her family. They were really worried about her. She had chronic fatigue syndrome. They just didn't know what to do with her. I mean, they tried therapy, they tried drugs, they tried everything, and she was really shutting down. This is a system that's really shutting down. You can get really bad, you can get very, very ill from not really seeing who you are and what you want to be. What do you notice? So let's start looking, throw it out there. Someone who hasn't said anything yet, say what you notice.
Left eye is smaller than the right.
Left eye is smaller than the right eye.
Her eyes aren't very wide at all.
Okay, not very open, wide at all, they're kind of heavy lidded. What's that? What else do you notice?
Her complexion, her cheeks are flushed, but yet she's got a lot of acne on her chin.
Okay, yeah, so there's kind of a ruddy complexion, kind of a lot of stuff going on in her system. What about the quality of her eyes and her gaze? Dull. Yeah, she's probably about 24, 25.
There's no emotion in her face. I don't see. It's like blank.
Okay. Okay. So there's not a whole lot of expression, just kind of everything about her face is just very staid, very sort of passive, sort of not moving, not animated.
I think she's kind of that look of, okay, really, what are you going to do for me?
Okay. So now that might be a little bit more of a judgment, your interpretation of what you're
Yeah.
seeing, okay?
Yes, I'm
So
sure.
what about that? So I'm going to call you back to that because see, we're so good at going to our
Right.
interpretations of others, and that's where we have to stay out of.
But it's that look in her eye, like, I'll wait and see it.
Okay, so a wait and see. So it's kind of the quality of her eyes that gives you a sense of distance or, okay.
I'm sure.
Anything else you want to notice? I see kind of her whole left side of her face is sort of a little bit higher, a little bit tighter. There's a little bit more tension maybe in the left side of her face. Her right side of her face is longer, kind of a little bit longer than the left side. So there's inequities from side to side on her face. Here again, what is she Picasso of? I'm going to be looking at her left eye when I ask questions as a coach. Okay, what are you Picasso of? Well, her story is that she was going back for a second round at a master's degree she never wanted. And she was determined to get it this time. Even if it kills me. Those are her words. Okay? When people say these things, you've got to take notice. Even if it kills me, she's going to jam herself through a round peg through a square hole. We do this all the time to ourselves, and we do it to others too. So we weren't there, and we were like, well, do you really want to do it? We really explored. Are you sure? You know, what about that degree? Nothing about that degree lit her up. She was going to get it. Okay, you're going to get it. So how do we keep you alive while you're getting your degree? So you go to, okay, what are you going to do to stay alive? What are you the Picasso of? Well, it turns out that she is a photographer and she loves to sing. Is she doing photography and singing? No. Okay, she's not doing the things that feed her soul and keep her youthful. Okay, so her action steps, when she talked about those, you see a little twinkle in that left eye. And you gotta watch really, really closely. Because a system like this is so shut down, you might see someone or they're afraid to actually come out and share who they really are and what they're really good at, because no one ever asks us what we're really good at. Like, oh, I can't show that, that's too much about me. But if you watch, you go, because, well, I like photography, and I like painting or whatever. And she might say, I do all these different things, but photography was like, boop. You go, oh, okay. You have to notice, okay, so now we're going to talk to her about photography. What kind of photography? What kind of camera do you have? If you could get the best camera in the world, what would you get? You guide her towards what she really wants, and then you'll see that left eye go, you have to watch. You have to notice it, because people are sneaky. They'll stay in that boxed in because that's comfortable, even though it doesn't, you know, it's cramped in there. They'll stay in there because it's more comfortable than risking exposure and getting shut down again. Okay? So, She had transforming feedback. This is not in an hour and a half. This is a week later. She came to a week-long coaching seminar.
Wow.
Same or different? Pretty different. Yeah. She went on, she finished her degree. She also entered some photography, and she won the Kodak top 10 finalists in the world. She's a high-performing individual. Okay? So we can't give up on people. We have to get seriously curious to engage them. That's engagement. But what's interesting to me is that her left eye was so disengaged, right? And her right eye was kind of on. And what's interesting here to me, if you really look at it, it's kind of hard if you're not. Her left eye is more engaged now, and her right eye is taking a little bit of a back seat. And I see that oftentimes when we activate one part of our brain, it comes online, and the other one kind of goes back. And then after you get balance and you start using both, and then both eyes come fully in focus again. All right? One more. Before and after. This was in an hour and a half. This gentleman's story is really funny. He's a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and he came because he was really interested in this particular type of coaching technique. What do you notice about his face? Someone else, again, who hasn't said anything, shout something out. What do you notice? What do you actually see?
He looks like he's in pain.
Okay, so now
Like
that...
there's some kind of a deep pain there.
Okay, so here again, that is your interpretation of what his body how it's showing up. What about his system might tell you that he's in pain? I don't know if he's in pain. He could just be having the time of his life up here, right? So what about it? I'm going to ask you to get really focused on what you see. What made you say that? What actually on his face, in his system, made you say that?
Everything's so scrunched. It's almost like you've got a really bad migraine.
Okay.
Everything just kind of closes in.
Right, and we don't know he has a migraine either. So see how fast it is? We can go and make up a story about what's going on with this guy. We just do it. We do it instantly. We're constantly making up stories about who's showing up in front of us. We do it to children, to our husbands, to our spouses, to our colleagues. Instead of saying open to outcome, open to, well, who are you today? It could be someone completely different than who they were walking in yesterday.
The eyes
So-
look downturned.
Downturned, okay, so he has a little bit downturn in the eyes. What about the quality of his gaze? Are both eyes equally clear and focused, or is there a difference? What's the difference?
The left eye is looking down. It's shadowed.
Okay, so there's a little bit more shadow on that left side. And you can see the lighting in this one. It's fairly equal on both sides, right? So he's sitting in front of the light, and so the light is right in front of him. Yeah, he has some very deep lines in his forehead.
Seems like his jaw is clenched.
Okay, kind of, do you see that up in here, kind of towards his ears, or where do you see that?
Below his bottom.
Down here? Okay, down in here, yeah, it's interesting because we see our vision of ourselves in our life literally through our vision channel. So I always start with the vision. And then people who have mouths, I coached with a woman who went through the same coaching training. She was a model, beautiful, beautiful, did modeling all over the world, gorgeous woman. She came because she was really fascinated about this. And her mouth was like this. I mean, it was really just completely slanted. It's just always been that way. And I said, you took a picture of yourself when you were a little girl and brought that. Her mouth, you weren't born with a mouth like this. After 2 weeks of going through coach training, her mouth was completely horizontal. She didn't go on to be a coach, but she says, but that was the best money I ever made. Because her mouth flapped. It went straight again. It just went. Okay. So.
His head seems to be tilted slightly to the
left.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little head tilt to the left. All right, so his story, he's an organizational consultant, been doing it for years, a very good one. But we were like, well, what lights you up? And he was kind of hard, it was kind of a tough nut to crack, so we kept digging and digging with questions, and he said, well, I kind of always thought about writing a book about organizational consulting. It was a little light, like, okay, so what's that book? about. And then he says, well, I've never told anyone. And then this twinkle in his eye came right up. He says, and I've always wanted to write a book about Santa Claus and his elves. So now put a white beard on this guy and little round glasses, right? And he's, you know, and he popped out and he came out to play with us because we were curious enough and asked him questions about what we saw when he said something. We said, oh, well, not so much lights here, but when you said book, okay, we'll follow the book. Oh, Santa Claus, more lights, more lights. We go towards what brings more vitality. So follow the signals, follow the cues with the people that you're working with, and you get these kind of transformations. It's pretty simple. We don't take the time to really see others and listen to them and explore, you know, what their brilliance is. Have we done that with everybody in our office? Have we looked at their strengths? And then this kind of flows into, has anyone used strengths-based leadership here at Strength Finders? A few of you. This all feeds into that. So some of these assessments really help find people. If they really don't have a clue what they are about, then you can do some assessments on top of that to really, okay, well, you're really strong at this and this. And you're doing this job, oh my gosh, maybe we need to move you over to this job and put so-and-so into that job, and then all of a sudden things start working gloriously. Sometimes people are just in the wrong position for what they're really great at. People want to bring their strengths to work. They don't want to work on their weaknesses. That's like the lights out. Okay. So how much are you seeing? You guys get to pair up now. All right, so turn to someone on your table, and if there's not an even number of people on your table, find someone to pair up with. And these are the questions, all right? You're going to be watching and giving feedback, and the feedback is not, you're not going to go into a conversation. One person's going to be the coach, all right? And one person's going to be the coachee. And you're going to ask some questions. You're going to spend about 5 minutes each. All right, with each person. And you're going to explore, you're going to ask, you know, what is your vision, or something along these lines. You're going to ask what, because we have to get to the vision first. We have to know what they really want to do. We often go straight to how to. And in that video of the students, okay, what's your vision, where do you want to go, and it activated their brain, right, in a positive attractor. And when they said, well, how are you going to get there? And then, oh my God, I got to take this class, this class, this class. All of a sudden, the negative emotional attractors show up. So stick to these questions. You can use different ones, but these are just some kind of starters. What are you doing when time stops and you're in the flow? That's a great one if you don't know who you're working with. If you're working with a colleague, then you might ask some more specific questions about your team, your organization, your job, that kind of thing. What are you Picasso of, at home or at work? If the sky were the limit, where would you take your career? All right, if there were no holds barred, you just go out and, you know, or you had all the money in the world, where would you be? Where would you go? Where would you live? And really, you'll find people can go, it's kind of, wow, my system's being asked to show up. We're asking them to engage. We're asking people's systems to engage, their whole bodies. Don't ask why and how questions. And you'll see that. And if you do, if you go offline and you're really looking, you'll see it. You'll see when you've gone off. You've seen when all of a sudden, and it can be in a nanosecond, boom, boom, boom. All right? So pair up and just practice this. And the feedback is, oh wow, when you talk about that, and it's okay for the coach to interrupt, all right? It's okay for the coach to interrupt. This is important because it's the feedback that changes the person. So if the person keeps going on and on and on about what they love, follow that, but then say, whoa, stop. I want to give you some feedback. When you were talking about your dog that you just got, man, your left eye really lit up. And then let them go back to it. Okay? All right, so interrupt, get feedback, and then go. All right? I'm just going to walk around. Okay. I look around the room, everyone is way more engaged than when you walked in here. How does it feel in your body? I want you to get that feeling. What does that feel like? God, you're really lit up, Sam. It's kind of giddy, okay? What else? What are people feeling right now?
Lighter.
Lighter.
Energized.
Okay. Energized.
Understood.
Understood.
Just whole.
Whole. Heard. Heard.
I actually had tension right here in my right shoulder when I got here that I was rubbing out, and now I don't notice that anymore.
Right, so you won't be taking sick leave tomorrow. Your productivity's going up.
So I just did that instead of face, I'm like, whatever.
Awesome, and that's good noticing. So this is high noticing. Okay, this is when you start to you see how you feel like you might have. You've gone from those antenna ears picking up information from the environment, and now you guys are developing more of this radar dish, the satellite dish, to see what's happening in your environment. You have to see it, you have to pay attention to it, and then you have to feed it back. Because oftentimes we just get all closed down, and we even don't know who we are really. So it takes others. That's the highest service we can do as a leader, to be in service to someone else, is to see them for their brilliance. Then they want to come to work, right? They want to do what they're there to do, because they're being seen and heard. How was that? How did it feel while you were going through that process of noticing? Did people get off and kind of forget about the feedback part? Be honest. Okay, over there. What happened?
I was mentioning, I think it's really hard to listen to what they're saying, and then also, I kind of tuned out of the words when I was trying to remember everything that was going on in my head.
Okay, this is called metatasking. That's the difference between going from rabbit ear to radar dish. You have to be able to metatask as a leader. You have to be able to walk into a room and carry a conversation on, be present all at the same time, and give feedback.
That takes practice.
It takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of strength. When I first started doing coaching, we would sit for hours, and I thought, oh my God, attention out, attention out, attention out. We often are attention in, right? So having attention out is hard work, but believe me, you can build those muscles. You have to practice it. It's just like a muscle. Attention is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. To where I can do this for days and not get tired.
So when you walk in a room like this, do you scan the room and kind of...
Of course I do.
Are we in trouble?
No, you all are so different. The energy in here after you guys got to just break out a little bit and share a little bit of your brilliance with someone else maybe you didn't know. It's completely different. It feels lighter. It's bigger for me even. It's like everything got bigger.
I have an observation. Because all of the test cases that we looked at, there was such a difference between one eye and the other.
Right.
I was very aware of that when I was talking with Jennifer, that I would tend to just look, I guess my right eye is maybe dominant, so it automatically looks at her left eye because it's right. And so, but because of all these exercises, I would keep reminding myself to also check out what was going on with her other eye.
Exactly.
And I've never had that thought before when talking with
And
someone.
we tend to, and it could, I haven't really looked into this, but it could also be culturally that we look at certain eyes. In fact, I think we tend to look at people's right eyes because that left eye is more, and maybe more intimate. It's around relationship stuff. But it is, you always want to look at both eyes because they're going to give you clues of where to direct your line of inquiry and becoming really insanely curious about who you're with. What else happened out there? Yeah.
Well, the eyes were the same. I really just noticed.
Okay, great. So yeah, exactly. So when you're working with people who haven't been jammed down into boxes all their life, it's harder. For people who are high performers, who are already doing what they love to do, that's when you have to even get even more insanely good at noticing the nuances, the flickers, the relaxation. It might go from the eyes to the mouth. So someone might be really clear in their vision, but their mouth might have some tension or is not even. And that's when you would want to start getting them to voice. So they see their vision, now they have to speak their vision. And when they start speaking their vision, what we would do with people in our coaching sessions, we'd have them for a week, they get to sing karaoke and tell, that gets people right out of their pocket. They'd have to sing their passion, right? And then you watch this just unravel. You just watch people, their mouths start to loosen up, and then you see this energy go down to the heart area. You see them breathe differently. You see their posture change. But we always start with the eyes, because that's the vision. You got to get the vision first, the what, before you go to the how-tos with an action step. Okay, don't go to how-tos until someone's really clear and you know that they're coming back in and saying, yeah, I am so passionate about this part of my job. Because it could change tomorrow. Especially if people aren't clear. They will try different things, and we're all human. We have days where we're really lights on. It's called lights on learning, right? And there's days when things happen and we aren't. But as leaders and servant leaders, we should be able to ask those questions and start pulling people back out to engage them. Completely different environments. If you can create an integrity environment in your workplace where people can show up like this and they feel like, oh gosh, someone notices that, maybe I am down today. But you're not going to go, well, what's wrong? Oh my God, you are going to get everything. All right? What's the problem? Oh my God. Ask what's the problem and you'll get the problem. What can we do today that would, that you really want to do? What do you need to do? Do you need to go take care of X, Y, Z? Are you not focused or engaged today because you're really thinking about voting before you leave the country next week? Kind of like me. So, get it handled. Go do it, come back and be present. So we can allow people to handle their lives and they can still know that they can come back and get their work done. That's a huge relief. Okay? Allowing people to be where they are and then shift it.
Well, that all assumes that you can actually be able to have that change. But sometimes, it's just better for people to be somewhere else. So that I can see why you would want in your team that you would want everybody to get along on the team. But every once in a while, something's going to happen, and that person's just not the right fit for your team. Mm-hmm. So the answer to me would be find the next best place for them. That doesn't mean and help them along the way, but sometimes it just doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
things shift all the time.
They shift, so you have, I think it's a leader, you have to go back and balance. I'm not going to spend 20% of my time on this one person, and I've done that for 3 weeks and nothing's happening, and now maybe it's just time for me to find a way for them to do it somewhere else. So that because I don't think we want to get everybody out of where it is that they are.
Oftentimes not. Yeah, that's that 17% maybe, that are really totally disengaged. And they might really be in the wrong. Maybe they're the girl who wanted the master's degree in profession she never really wanted, right? But we're here, and we get that mindset. We're really good at digging in. But it's always really refreshing, and you guys that was so great to watch you guys light up this room. Totally different. And you can do that with your teams back at work. Just don't go around, oh, your left eye does this. Just say now, when you talk about Trisha, really, you really go like that. Don't say that. Say something like, tell me more about that. I can see that you really get a twinkle in your eye, or I can see that you get really excited about that. All right, don't freak them out that you're like intensely looking at their right eye, right? Their mouth goes straight out when you talk about that person, right? But just say, tell me more about that metatasking. You have to tag the word with what's going on in the system, so you have to pay attention to the words, the visuals, and the train of thought all at the same time. We can do it. We're doing it. We're just not leveraging it. We're not using it. So that is really pretty much the presentation here. Remember that the clues are in their bodies, and that if you really get curious about those that you work with, you'll see a transformation. in yourself as well as those you're working with. So for more information on this, you can reach me at lissa.pohl@uky.edu. And any questions before we close up? Yes?
Do you look at the body at all, or just look at?
Yes, I usually start at the top and then but I'm scanning the whole body. Yeah, but generally because the vision we're going to see here in the vision center, a vision of someone's life is going to be here, and then their expression is going to come here, and then when it all starts gelling, you see the body relax, you see their breathing change, everything transforms, and you can watch the whole system.
Just before we leave, I want to remind everyone, if you haven't already signed up for lunch, please plan to join us anyway if your schedule permits. And we may eat a little bit earlier today, perhaps about 1:45, so if that helps you in your transition. Thank you.
All right, that's it.